Hello everyone, today we're going to be exploring ancient Rome, courtesy of Footsore Miniatures and Games, as we take a look at the new starter set for Gangs of Rome 2nd edition. Okay then, our Gangs of Rome 2-player starter set. Skirmish on the streets of Rome, 2 gangs, 1 city. This includes the limited Aniata, possibly, and Teata. More likely, who knows. It's a limited edition model. Oh, I don't speak the Roman. If we look at it this way, you see what's inside. So, we have full hardback book, 30 multi-pose plastic citizens to make group mobs and gangs, MDF bases for the fighters, a building under construction, activation tokens, and the like. Inside said box, whoosh, the collaboration of 3 companies. So, Gangs of Rome is obviously Footsore Miniatures, producing the game and the metals. You know, our dice. Wargames Atlantic have produced these lovely plastics for them, which we'll take a look at in a moment. Sarissa Precision have done the terrain bases and tokenry. Take a look at that in more detail in a moment. Cardstock tokens, so presumably your coins, wound markers activation, who knows. Time will tell. For this runs slightly differently than 1st edition, which I'm familiar with. Nice little measuring stick. So, 7-inch long, 1 by 2 by 4. And then some big, look like 1.5 to 2-inch objectives. They're nice. What's that? 1 mil, 1.5, 2. Our survey says 2 mil cardstock. Sort of satin finish on it. And then the big beast itself, the Gangs of Rome Rulebook. So, this is hardback and is 192 pages long, although the last 3 of those are token sheets. A couple are an advert for Sarissa to show what else is available from Rome. I have to say, I really like the stuff for Rome for Sarissa. I just wish Lloyd would build more of it for me. Most Wanted from Footsore, so these are metal things that came out for the 1st edition, which you can still use. So if you want a bit of variation or something a bit different, they're in there. A reference sheet. Nice that it's there. I would like quick reference sheets as card with my books though, or with my games. I'm old school like that. So, what are we looking at now? The book itself is divided into 4 sections. The core rules are the first 32 pages. Your advanced rules are the following 60 pages. Then we have around 20 odd pages of campaign, and then the last chunk of the book is appendix, painting guides, play guides, terrain guides, campaign roster sheets, glossary, all your quick reference and tokens. So, a chunky bit. The object of the game is to kill everyone, so that's good. Activation. So this is interesting. Move, attack, leap, climb, blend, bind, pick up, put down, push, pull, exit, mob. And these are important. For these round-based things are your mobs. They run around the board being people in the city because you are fighting in a city and not in some sort of vacuum or empty stage, which means when you activate, you can do things like blend. And blend is sneak into one of these mob bases and hide in the crowd, essentially. And then when you exit, you don't have to exit from the same one you entered. These are just sort of the densest patches of mob. There's obviously individuals that are wandering around that don't get counted. So that's all good. How you run, jump, skip, and fight. Interacting with objectives. First, move a mob base in the direction you choose. Oh, I don't want that. I quite like random distance mob base movings where they just start storming all over the place. This is going to be slightly more tactical. I like stampeding mobs. Speaking of which, you can still scare the mobs, which is good. So when they react, they may run away, they may stampede, they may attack you. Who knows how things are going to go. Dice itself is an opposed roll generally. And the other thing is, as you take damage, it also causes issues with your moving and skipping and fighting. So as you bleed out, you become less than you were before. Some basic scenarios to get you started and example gangs, red and blue, which makes sense. And that is all you need to get playing the game. And then we're into the advanced rules, which includes a whole load of options, including adding things like Roman watchmen that you're going to have to deal with. More interesting and circumspect rules like blending, exiting, and the like. There's our abilities. You too can level up as you play, becoming a formidable fighter, or potentially laying your hand on some sort of fantastic bit of equipment. Nice thing about small weapons is they don't do a lot of damage, but you can still hide in the mob. If you've got a pilum or a massive Legionnaire's scutum shield, then I'm sorry, son, that's going to have to be dumped if you want anybody to think you're just an innocent bystander. We have gods, Mars, Apollo, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and player's choice, each of which will give you a different favour on the table. And then the most wanted. So these are weird gangs of people, each of which has a set of figures from Footsore, and they work a bit differently. They're not to be confused with the individuals who are the Incalla. So those are sort of named character heroes, and there's some scenario generation parts. It's a very comprehensive book, I'll give it that. More advanced scenarios, here we go. This is what we're after. Some of the denizens of Rome that you'll know from the hoi polloi, again, all have miniatures and specific rules. Some of them were tied to terrain pieces. So for example, this tile throwing Celt gets very annoyed if people come near his building work on the temple. And you may get a bit of terracotta lobbed at your head, which will teach you. So all of these sort of characters you can add either for specific scenarios or just randomly to annoy people, I think, is probably a good way of doing things. I mean, Roof in the Scorpion Thrower, he does exactly what he said on the tin. So while they're tied to specific encounters or buildings, sometimes you can use them wherever you want. The campaign rules gives us additional phases to play beyond your standard games, and also how you set up your campaigns. At the end of the day, the goal in Gangs of Rome is to have your Dominus, not your gang leader, because he's never on the table. He's the person who's recruited your gang. the mob is, or Rome is the mob, and the key is to sway the streets to your point of view, and maybe someday you'll have enough power accrued that you can join the Senate and be on the high life as nobility rather than just some sort of scummy merchant. And that's part and parcel of this. So you've got your gangs going out, attempting to get new equipment, gaining abilities, expanding your area of influence, and then the campaign can just sort of take place. There's some nice little bits of fluff text in here as well, giving you an interest in Rome itself. And then our first appendix is using Gangs of Rome version 1, which is quite nice. So if you've already got these, you're not having to rebuy them. You can just push on and start playing the new version. Painting guides are always handy. Assembly, that's the building that comes with this, the Forica, the shitter, essentially. And doing a bit of additional detailing to the base using cut out bits of card, which thankfully the box is made of card, therefore it comes with its own supply of terrain tiles to put down on the bottom of the base, along with some sand. So yeah, comprehensive rulebook. Ooh, the maps as well. That's nice for the campaign, so you don't have to be making these things up yourself. You can photocopy and color code yours as you go through. And several pages of generate your own names. That's handy. Along with a story to put on the campaign sheet as well, because that was part and parcel of the original Gangs of Rome. If I can find that appendix again. Yeah, so each fighter would come with a card with a randomized name, a randomized fighter story, and then their skills and their stat line were also randomized, and what god they followed. Obviously, you can now generate all of that yourself, but rather than having to come up with your own stories and your own names and that sort of thing, you can roll on these tables to build it that way. So there we go. That's a quick overview of the book itself. Fairly comprehensive. Slight change in how things are going to be playing out, clearly, but still looks like it's noticeably the same as the first edition. So if you played that, you're not going to be completely baffled by anything that's changing here. So let's take a look at some of the other bits that we got with the book. Okay, then from Sarissa is the Forica under construction. We have our build guide on the back, relatively straightforward, not many pieces. In fact, we are looking at a single wooden sprue. So we have our base, our wall sections, some buttressing, the little ladder that goes up against it, and some scaffolding to go around it as well, presumably, or possibly upper levels. Looks like upper levels, actually. 3mm MDF. Lovely smell on it, and should pop out relatively easily. You may want to run a knife around just at the sort of the sprue points, I would suppose you would call them, the gates on the frame, just to help you release those without snapping any of it. Although if you do break it, it's wood. Wood glue will put it back together, which is what you're going to be using to assemble it anyway. There is also your set of bases. So 25mm rounds for your gang, and then these 3 large rounds, which are 80mm. Yep, 80mm. They are your mob bases, and you can put multi-figures on those. All right, everything's built. We're going to start with the building itself, the Forica. It is, in case people want to know, 150 millimeters by 130, 132 millimeters wide. It is approximately 75 mil tall at the tallest part, about 70 at the front. So it is under construction. Wooden wall one side, partly rendered. You can paint this as brickwork at the top, and then this is plaster rendering below. You can see this side's also on progress, or if you want to be fancy, you can do the whole thing as sort of a brickwork. It's a nice little piece of kit. The ladder actually has a slightly beveled bottom to allow it to lean at an incline, and then two hooks which allow you to clip it on sort of here, there and everywhere, which is just simply darling. And because it sits nice and flat on the base, you don't actually have to glue that on. That could be left separate and attached wherever you need to attach it on this, or if you have any other sort of scaffolding or platforms at that size, it can go into other places as well. So it's a nice little piece of set down terrain that takes minutes to build and probably won't take long to paint either. So you can do a bit of additional work like they've done in the hobby section of the book, putting tiles or cobbles or that sort of thing on the base itself. So there we go. That is the building. Taking a look at the sprue in a bit more detail before we get on to the minis then. 6 bodies, legs and torsos are separate, so you've got posability there. There is a cloaked torso here that can also be accompanied by this sort of errant covering, I suppose, pulling it, wrapping it around them. Nice selection of heads, and then a host of weapons. A few empty hands, a few fists that you can use in a variety of ways. This hand down here appears to be telling somebody to shush, finger on their lips, as if maybe they've been saying too much, or perhaps he's waggling it into somebody's face, which is good. There is one bow and arrow that is firing. So we have this hand here, and then this extended arm, and then there's another bow that is just being carried. Not a huge amount of additional sort of periphery. You've got a scabbarded sword, a quiver of arrows, you've got a couple of greaves that can be put on, and then there's a couple of hands that are options. So if you were to cut off this hand at the wrist, you could replace it with this hand with a rock in it, or this hand over here with something in it. So you can, if you want to start doing a bit of kit bashing, that option is there. There's even a dagger in here for the right hand, as a lot of the daggers are in the left. So I've done a more detailed look at this in an unboxing a while ago when the kit first came out. But overall, it's a really nice set of plastics. And let's take a look at what you can do when they're built. Okay, I've assembled a motley crew. That could be the potentially start of a gang. The figures themselves are almost 28mm to eye level. He is stooped forward though, so if he stood up straight, he would be 28mm to eye level. You can see here, this is the one with the cloak, allowing him to hide. In this case, a wicked looking sword there is trying to be hidden, which may or may not help him out. When you're putting your gang together, you randomly generate the stats. Not totally randomly generated. There is a table that has a spread of numbers. So at worst, for example, you might get a 5 in agility, and at best you might get a 7. Once you've randomly generated your stats, you then add them together and that gives you a cost. Then you generate your ability and the god you were born under. And that's your ganger almost done. Then you can go in and equip them. So you might find that you've got somebody who is particularly weak in melee. They may have a low guts and you're worried about them getting killed up. But they've got decent agility, so give them a bow, send them at the back. Some weapons are more expensive than others and rarer than others. So a club is very easy to come by, regardless of how many people you have in your gang. However, hiring somebody who may or may not have been a gladiator at some point is going to be slightly more expensive, as will the requisite kit for them. So you may end up buying the cheapest things. Clubs are great, spears are great. The problem with spears is you can't really blend in the mob, which is always a problem, whereas somebody with a club can easily do it. Somebody with a cloak may be able to hide a short sword slightly easier, and they can definitely hide a dagger. But otherwise, if you've got a spear or a pilum or large shield, you're going to end up chucking them away if you want to blend in with the mob. I've just made up a little scene here. We have some people bringing amphora back from the market. Somebody's just been robbed. He's running off with his ill-gotten gains. And this fella is just sauntering on, trying to get home. So 5 on a base will do the job lovely. You could put on a few more, you could put on a few less, it's up to you. They are essentially markers in the game, so you don't have to worry about interacting, removing models, counting wounds or anything else. The mob is just thickest where the base is. And like I say, somebody can, if needs be, blend in with the mob, enters it, disappears and reappears later on. So that's the plastics. As far as the assembly goes for your gang, happy days, very quick and easy. With your civilians, your little sort of Roman-esque people, there aren't a huge amount of trade goods and the like. You've just got the 2 amphora, and then after that there's some empty hands. There are more metal models if you want to use those for your mobs. Footsore have been doing those for years now, so you can pick those up, and they've got a lot more depth in them and character. You've got mother and children sort of wandering around and desperately tugging at sort of apron strings or arguing in the street because they're not getting the candied mouse that they want for a snack. It's always the way. But anyway, that's the plastics. The last figure, obviously then in the box, is the metal one. So I've just very quickly cleaned off the bit of flash. Slight bit of a mismold on the trident in that we've lost the sort of prong at the top of this, but it still looks like what it's supposed to. Overall, there is a minimal mold line that runs around here, a seam up the side of the trident and back down, so it will need to be tidied. But the casting overall is spot on. Say there was that bit of a, you see it there, a little bit thin in the base area. That's going to be different for other people's models, I presume. You won't have that, and even if you do, it's being glued to a wooden disc. And then you're going to be texturing over the top of it, so nobody will see that. If you're going to have a slight miscast or thinning of metal, I'd much rather be on a piece of worthless base than anywhere else. But yeah, nice set of figures. Nice little bonus to be your leader on the table as you attempt to take over Rome. So there we have it, folks. A fantastic starter set. Everything you need to get playing. You've got your mobs, your bit of terrain, your gangs, all the dice and tokens required for play, and the full hardback book. And as a collaborative effort between Footsore Wargames Atlantic and Sarissa Precision. It's fantastic. I think it's really nice, those three smaller companies coming together. We've seen it with Baron's War as well, where the plastics were done by Wargames Atlantic for Footsore. And these little collaborations show that they can sort of punch above their weight with the bigger boys, so to speak, when it comes to putting together a starter set that has everything you need. And I think that's very important these days. When people look out for a starter set, they seem to get confused and scared by just a rule book by themselves and then being left to buy the other assorted odds and sods. So terrific set, great way to get started, and some beautiful miniatures to boot. Let me know what you think below about Gangs of Rome. If you've already been playing the first edition, are you going for the second? Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.